Welcome to Lawyers, Guns and Money. I'm Tim Newton, and here we've got Ben Hart from Integrity Legal. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So this is our latest series of Lawyers, Guns and Money, as we discussed before, the popular Warren Zevon song you've never heard of.
I've never heard of it. I will listen to it before we do this again, though. I will tell you that.
So we've got a funny one to talk about today. Now, we're aware that over the past couple of years there's been a new rise of protests in the country over specific issues, but protests have happened here in Thailand a lot in the past. There's a French gentleman, which we'll probably discuss a bit further on. But if I am a foreigner, a lot of people say the protests are nothing to do with you, stay away, it's got nothing to do with you, it's not your job or your responsibility as a foreigner to get involved. If I'm a foreigner and I do go to protests, am I going to get dragged away by the police and deported?
Well, let me preface my answer to that by saying I actually agree with that paradigm. If you are a foreign national here, it really isn't any of your concern. It's none of your business what's going on. If you don't like something, and I know that sounds a little cold, but if you really have a problem with it, you can always go. You know, I mean, there is that. Now, that being said, I am a naturalized Thai. I do understand that there can be some, you can feel a little bit of maybe dissonance in your own mind about for example, in America, we have, so-called freedom of speech, although I'm wondering sometimes, and over here, I have seen Americans over the years that kind of have their own concerns. And my position on that is, well, this isn't America. It's not the same system, and that just is what it is. Now, leaving that behind, as you say, do you particularly have to worry about getting dragged away by the police? Well, first off, let's first start by saying, if you're in non-immigrant visa status here in Thailand, or you're in tourist visa status, you're a guest, period, end of discussion. If they perceive, the police on the ground perceive you to be causing a problem, then yeah, you very possibly could get detained and you could get, deported or something like this.
I suppose just to try and stretch that one out a little bit, sure. If I happen to just walk past and there's a protest happening and I'm just there casually watching it and taking photos, that's quite different from actually getting into the protest, waving a sign around and screaming at people.
Very different, yeah. It's been my experience, and I've been near protests over the years, both as a foreign national and as a Thai here. It's been my experience, quite frankly, that the Thai police, the relevant law enforcement agencies that are dealing with sort of monitoring these events, they are not, like, in any sense quick on the draw, so to speak, to go and grab some foreigner that's just wandering around. That's not what's going on in any way, shape, or form. And that's never been my experience in this country with how they deal with such things. So, no, if you're just wandering by a protest and you happen to see it or take it, I would hesitate to tell anybody that's a great idea to take photos of such events, whatever, but to each their own. You take whatever levels of risk you feel like you're willing to take. But no, the Thai police are not running around, going to snatch up a foreigner for just being near a protest. Now, in the middle of one, as I recall, going back into 2010, I think, there was a situation where a foreigner was even engaged in, acts of vandalism and some things of this nature. Yeah, you're going to have some real problems with that, because that may be a flagrant violation of the Thai criminal law.
Sure. Now, there's been a French gentleman lately, a Jan, can't remember his last name, who has had a few priors and has been speaking out against the Thai government and the Thai monarchy even. And he was lately trying to get back into Thailand. He arrived in Phuket, and basically immigration turned him around and said, you're going to be getting on the next plane out of here. You're not the sort of person we want to have. So I suppose it does happen where your name can sort of end up on a red list and you may not be allowed back into the country. That's the worst case scenario.
Sure. And in his situation, I believe they cited, under the Immigration Act, they cited national security as being the issue for not letting him in, which I mean, frankly, they were pretty well in line with the law as far as I could tell. And let's not forget, this person had a non-immigrant visa that can be revoked.
Yes.
And if you're out of the country, this is another thing people have to remember. If you're in the country and your visa is revoked, there may be some remedies, some appeals. And let's be clear, they're limited, but there may be there.
Okay,
If you're abroad, immigration for you coming in, they have pretty much unfettered discretion to just say, yeah, we're not letting you into the country.
So here's a phone call. So, hi, Ben. It's Jan. I'm at the Phuket airport and they're telling me I can't come back into the country. I'd like to contract you to look after my case. What are you going to tell the lawyers, the judge?
And he has not come into Thailand.
He hasn't come into Thailand. He's stuck at Phuket airport, but he wants a lawyer. So come on, Ben, help me. What can you do?
I would say probably not a great deal. That discretion on the part of those immigration officers, that discretion in the act is clear. I mean, if they make that determination at the border, this is no less true, for example, in the United States. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, if they deem a person to be someone that's undesirable for a variety of different reasons to come into the country, their discretion on that matter, their determination is pretty much unreviewable. So I would probably say, man, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you're probably not coming in.
Send me your money and I'll think about it.
No, I mean, honestly, no, not in that circumstance. And what I would say to those who are out there that have this sort of inclination is maybe rethink it. This is Thailand. If you're not Thai, perhaps commenting on such things are not really within your bailiwick.
Ben, if I happen to be walking past as a civilian, this is interesting, I'll just stand here and watch it, and you end up with a rubber bullet in the face or sprayed in the eyes with water laced with pepper spray, you're not going to have a lot of legal recourse?
I would say no. I mean, one, it's sort of one of those situations, they say caveat emptor, in this case, I guess it'd be caveat bystander, sort of beware of your own surroundings. Having gone through and lived in an area that was, especially in 2010, that had a lot of this kind of activity. And by the way, this came to us. I was living there, I was working there. I didn't go to it came to me. I do very much understand the consternation that it can cause, but yeah, you want to almost be kind of hyper alert to your surroundings, and if you do start seeing the flashing lights coming, maybe it's time to
get off the other way.
Maybe go somewhere else is what I would say on that. Now, as far as legal recourse, I would say that it would be very, very limited, if any.
I suppose we should just also say, Ben, that generally Thailand is a very safe country.
Extremely safe country.
If you want to sort of put it on a world ranking, I'd be putting it up in maybe the top 10 or 15 countries.
Easily for me, yeah.
I've never been in a situation in Thailand, touch wood, over 10 years that I've felt...
it's very anomalous.
Yeah, slightly in danger.
And well, one thing I commented on with other expats, again, going back into 2010, which was pretty intense, from one neighborhood to the next, you didn't even notice. If one BTS stop down, and you wouldn't even know what was going on, the BTS stuff up. It's very interesting, the different places, you wouldn't even know there was. I remember my mother calling me a decade ago and saying, is everything okay? And I said, what, why?
Well, certainly the media, they're there and they've got the cameras focused on the activities, and I think it's easy for people to automatically assume that these protests are like happening everywhere.
Yeah.
But even when the coup happened back in May 2014, there was no tanks rolling down the streets.
No, that was very isolated to one tiny little area, and if you didn't know what was going on, you probably wouldn't have known it happened from one day to the next.
And even at the moment when there's the odd protest, I think there's protests on again this weekend, you'd be hard-pressed to actually know where they're going to be and find them, even if you wanted to. So I think we should just mention that. Okay,
Sure.
Interesting topic.
Yeah, definitely.
We are guests in the country. So Ben Hart from Integrity Legal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks again.
And there's a link under the description. So that is it for this series of Lawyers, Guns and Money on the Thaiger. If you've got any comments or questions, please address those below and we'll use those for our next series. And there's a whole lot of others. If you sort of search Lawyers, Guns and Money, the Thaiger, you'll find a whole lot of different topics discussed by a man who knows his stuff, with some silly questions from me. But from all of us here at the Thaiger, thanks for joining us.